We're going to think about how you can structure your piece of writing. You've had a chance to try out various ideas, various kinds of reflection about what you've experienced in these strange weeks. And now you need to start thinking about how we could put this together in a structure. So one thing I'm going to suggest is what we call dual narrative. And that's when two things are happening and you almost intersperse them. So we've maybe got one paragraph in the present, one in the past, another in the present, another in the past. So we're getting the two things working together and they're being interwoven, which can be quite interesting. So let's think about starting with a description, perhaps using the writing you did about your room wherever you spent most of the time in lockdown. Got some really nice pieces here. Include as much detail as possible and again reflect on your thoughts and feelings when you're in this room. Now go back and contrast that with a day at school. Think about the noise, the crowding, the liveliness, the human contact, the smells, and make the contrast as clear as possible. So again, you're thinking about what can you see, what can you hear, what can you feel, what can you smell, when you're in the middle of a crowded, busy day at school. And then the other thing I want you to think about is showing, not telling. So telling your story as though it's a little film that's happening in front of the reader. They should be able to imagine a little film in their heads. So instead of saying, we used to talk all the time, my friends and I, and now it's just over FaceTime, it could look something like this. That homework took me hours, said Alison. I agreed. Fortunately, for once in my life, I'd started it early. There was homework, said Becky. I thought that was for tomorrow. She looked as though she was going to cry. I gave her a quick hug. Don't worry, I'm sure she won't be cross, said Alison. I was absolutely convinced that this teacher would be incandescent with rage, but Becky looked reassured. So we've got a normal conversation, the kind that you could have had in lockdown and put a little hug in, and notice that it takes a little while to write all that, which is good because we want to go for 1,300 words. So rather than just say, we used to talk, we used to hug, give a specific example. And it could be fictional and it could be about anything at all, but try and show your vocabulary. So I've put incandescent rather than just furious or raging or something like that. I've tried to show that I know big words because this is higher now. And the other thing is, if you're going to use dialogue, you must punctuate it correctly. And that means little commas before you close the speech marks. Now, here we have a conversation after lockdown. Becky had frozen again. We're on FaceTime. I clicked and clicked, knowing it wouldn't help. Finally, something happened. I could hear Alison saying how bored she was. I started to tell them about what happened yesterday with my brother and how furious I was with him. Then I realised Becky was talking, so I stopped. She also stopped, and there was a silence. Then we both said, no, you go. So here I'm trying to show that when we're on FaceTime, it's awkward. We can't see each other's reactions. Technology gets in the way. But instead of saying all those things, I'm showing it. And again, it can be a totally made up conversation if you like. It doesn't have to be a word for word one that you actually have, but just to get that idea across. Rather than telling us that it's awkward, show us a moment of awkwardness. So here's an idea for your structure, and some of this writing, if you've been keeping up this week, you will already have done. So hopefully you've got it in something like a Word document where you can do a bit of cutting and pasting and then a little bit of editing and it won't be too much work. Hopefully. The setting, before and after, room, school. Exercise, before and after. So again, some people were talking about football, some people were talking about dance, some people were talking about having to give up football and do running instead. So again, how does that work? We could have a paragraph of really good detailed description using senses, what a game of football is like when you've got friends round about you, what dancing is like when you've got all that energy coming from people round about, what can you see, what can you hear, what can you smell, and then what about practicing dance steps in your room without anybody? What about playing football by yourself? Or forgetting the whole game of football and going for a run instead? Again, that's sensory description. Maximising the contrast. Learning, before and after. Some people find it difficult to get themselves focused. Some people find that actually you can get yourself really focused, and you're maybe now learning to learn more effectively because you can get on without any distractions. Family. A lot of people have said that they're spending more time with their family, talking more, eating together more, and really appreciating that. Friends. So that's probably the downside, but it may mean you see less of people you don't care for. It may mean that you've managed to keep those connections through social media. It may be that you feel friendships have perhaps changed in some ways. Again, the before and after contrast. Another thing that would be worth writing about and could take a paragraph is the moment of lockdown. When did you realise that this was coming? Some people have said, actually, I could see this coming. Other people, it came as a huge shock, and I would say I was absolutely one of those people. But again, what were your thoughts and feelings at the time before you knew what you know now? And finally, a little bit of reflection. What will you take from this into post-lockdown life?